Spider-Man's future is hanging from building to building. However, Tom Holland does not share the same fate, as he has already been confirmed to come back in the role for 3 more movies, ones that could go in many directions with his clash with Venom, or the arrival of the Sinister Six being inevitable. The latest outing from the franchise, Spider-Man No Way Home, also marked the last movie of Tom Holland's contract with the studios, or so we thought. So, a couple of days before the movie even dropped, longtime Spider-Man producer Amy Pascal announced that Tom Holland will be signing a new 3 movies contract, with us feeling relieved that we are going to see MCU's Peter Parker, or at least 3 more solo movies. Now, as to what those 3 movies will entail, only time will tell. And before we rush into things, let's talk about the 4th upcoming movie. By far, the latest Spider-Man movie is the most successful outing in MCU's Phase 4, excluding the likes of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, as it is still too early to tell. However, we are already turning our heads to the future. The 4th movie is confirmed, but with no real indication of a release date. The movie itself offers some promising future storylines that might get explored, and the reality of a brand as big as Spider-Man is that multiple parties will be pulling for what comes next. Once again, we were witnesses of just how the creative efforts behind the 3rd Spider-Man movie managed to live up to the hype the fans were expecting, with an end result like no other. From a perfect movie, it came as a spectacle, as it brought together 3 variants of Spider-Man to the big screen, an incredible spectacle that offered the kind of joyous fan service only comic book movies can manage. Taking into consideration that the movie has not been announced yet, we are far from any hint towards a potential release date. However, assuming that the next Spider-Man movie follows the usual trend to date, we should be expecting the next Spider-Man movie to come in December 2023. On the other hand, it may seem too early, as Marvel Studios already have 2 announced properties for the second half of 2023, with the movie highly likely coming in 2024. The new trilogy Amy Pascal enthusiastically talked about, just as the 3rd movie was about to drop, suggest that there might already be plans set up. And with that in mind, let's dive right into some of the details we managed to find, and if those bits and pieces somehow might connect us to what is coming and what the future holds for one of the most marketable characters of the Marvel Universe. Plus, there is still at least one crossover left in Spider-Man's resume in the future. Or that is what Sony Pictures' Tom Rothman said, who went on to describe how the deal between Sony and Marvel worked. We lend one, then they lend one. And that is how Benedict is in this movie. So we have one more lend back that is committed. The first thing that comes to mind when thinking about the movie are Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's appearances as past iterations of the character, and their return to the open-wide multiverse. At this point, it seems very unlikely that we will see them in the upcoming Tom Holland's 4th Spider-Man movie. However, that does not mean that they should not be getting a sequel or 2 from their own universes, right? There were some rumors of this idea becoming a reality, which is understandable, as the reception of their roles could pick up interest in the revival of not one, but both of their respective series. Not likely. But if someone feels that there is some unfinished business out there, why not? One of them could even return in a possible Miles Morales origin movie. Everything is possible, but more on that some other time. Tom Holland has a lot on his plate right now, and we don't think that he is going to step back into the same story again, or the same crossover, we should say. However, another crossover, the one Rothman spoke about, could be with the likes of Venom, with the 2 characters being the pinnacle of 2 characters crashing into each other. Something that we and all of the fans around the world are waiting to happen for so long, which is probably also the most intriguing thing about the confirmation of more Spider-Man movies coming to the big screen as part of the Marvel/Sony deal. At the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, Peter Parker is completely isolated, thanks to the sacrifice he made to save Earth from a multiverse catastrophe. His Aunt May is dead, his friends don't know him, and the Avengers dynamic, well, he can forget it, because that is logistically impossible, with the only way of it being possible is by them accepting him without knowing his true identity, and that is not how things work in that group. We are not sure if the Avengers Initiative is even remotely active, with its members dead, retired, off-planet, and their headquarters destroyed. One possibility we are hoping for is that Sony might pull a switcheroo and teleport Peter Parker to the Sonyverse, with the only thing in the way being the deal between Sony and Marvel and how it actually works for these kinds of situations. There is certainly a hint in the latest Spider-Man movie, thanks to Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock leaving a part of his symbiote in the MCU. And knowing how Marvel works, it is something that will definitely be paid off in the near future, especially if we are talking about the tantalizing prospect of Tom Holland's Peter Parker getting his hands on the symbiote-infused Black Spider-Man suit. On top of it all, Peter Parker has an obvious narrative objective: survival, which will probably be where the franchise will head next, with him also repairing his relationship with Ned and MJ, the other big part in his next chapter in life. However, with the two leaving for MIT and Boston, Peter Parker will be left alone in New York to continue doing his thing of the traditional friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and maybe something on the side, with this iteration of Peter Parker possibly starting to work for J. Jonah Jameson. Now that he doesn't know who Spider-Man is, we are not quite sure. However, one thing we are certain of is that there are a lot of stories to be told about the character, despite his formative years probably being over. Putting the shadow of Iron Man behind him, we saw Peter Parker with his making of the Spider-Man suit in the movie's final scene. And although this might not seem like a positive, putting aside the mentorship of Tony Stark and his technology, Peter Parker's struggles for his own identity in the MCU might finally be over, with him embracing exactly who he is, with him adopting the traditional Spider-Man suit. Plus, most crucially, putting the iconic red and blue costume together feels like a conscious decision to pay homage to Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's take on the character, but also their teachings about ignoring the call of vengeance and hatred. The multiversal catastrophe we talked about moments ago, Doctor Strange warning Peter Parker about what could come through, would be inevitable if it wasn't for his noble sacrifice. The bright schisms across the sky suggested that an infinite amount of multiverse individuals, both friends and foes, who knew Peter Parker could cross over. The majority of the individuals showcased in the multiverse tears were hidden quite well, but one in particular looked very interesting, a figure holding a spear and furs across his shoulders, and we already know who it is. Of course, we are talking about Kraven the Hunter, who will be coming to the big screen in 2023, starring in his own movie, with this hint giving us yet another nod of possibility that Tom Holland's Spider-Man future may lie in the Sonyverse, an Easter egg we cannot miss, especially if Peter Parker's future is uncertain. On a related note, tell us down in the comments below, what do you think the future of Tom Holland's Spider-Man hold? Do you think we could be looking at a possible crossover with Sonyverse, where Venom and Morbius currently reside? Or is there something else, like the Sinister Six finally becoming a reality? But also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you would like to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.